Hey there, and welcome to the Black Narrative, where every story echoes with soul, strength, and a whole lot of heart. Let's dive into today's tale. Every evening, as the amber light faded behind the live oaks, Josephine Carter settled into her weathered rocking chair on the wide veranda of 42, Elmwood Drive in Riverside, Georgia. The breeze carried the faint hum of cicadas, and the sky burned pink over the tidy rows of Victorian homes and clipped boxwood hedges. But to Josephine, this old clapboard house, with its peeling mint green shutters and creaking floorboards, was more than a relic, it was the repository of a lifetime. At 73, Josephine's straight posture and silver-threaded hair spoke of resilience. Here she had welcomed her only daughter into the world, paced the porch clutching flowers after her husband's funeral, and nursed herself back from pneumonia under its sagging roof. The chipped ceramic mug beside her, still steaming with chamomile, bore the proud inscription, "Riverside Roots since '68. Each evening she sipped that tea, gazing over her rose-strangled railing, watching the sun gild the rooftops she had helped keep standing for half a century. Riverside was changing. 50 years earlier, this street had been a close-knit enclave of families bound by shared history, church potlucks, domino tournaments, and whispered plans for marches down Main Street. Now sleek SUVs moved too swiftly past, and new neighbors eyed Josephine's front porch as if it were an exhibit in a museum of things they found quaint but out of place. She rarely spoke to them, but she felt their suspicion in the quick turns of their heads and the way they gripped their handbags a little tighter. Still she sat. Each creak of her chair was a quiet defiance, a reminder that her roots ran deeper than the freshly poured driveways and manicured lawns. Here, where every board was nailed by her own hands or those of friends long gone, Josephine Carter belonged. And no storm, past or coming, would force her from this porch. That evening, Josephine Carter should have been halfway to her friend's porch by now. After clocking out from her night shift as a groundskeeper at the state capitol, she tucked 2 thermoses of sweet potato ginger soup into her canvas tote, a weekly ritual for her neighbor, Lucy Monroe, whose husband was convalescing from surgery. The moonlit sidewalks of Elmwood Drive lay quiet beneath the live oaks, and Josephine's footsteps crunched softly in the thin frost. She paused only once, at Mrs. Parker's pale bay window, where a pair of narrowed eyes peered through half-drawn curtains. Josephine sighed inwardly and pressed on. Lucy's porch light glowed ahead, promising warmth and a grateful smile. She rounded the last hedge, set her tote down for a moment to smooth her skirt, and froze. Behind her, a Riverside County Sheriff's cruiser idled, red and blue beams painting her knitting-worn coat in flashes of urgency. The engine's low rumble swallowed the cicada's song. Before she could think, the intercom crackled, "Ma'am, turn around slowly and keep your hands where we can see them." Josephine lifted her hands, palms open. Her voice, calm and clear, carried across the frost-coated lawn. "Good evening, officers. I'm Josephine Carter. I'm on my way to number 46, Lucy Monroe's house. You may verify with dispatcher, Lucy's expecting me." Deputy Benjamin Harris, broad-shouldered with a sheriff's badge glinting on his chest, stepped out first. His partner, Deputy Sophia Nguyen, followed more hesitantly, hand at the ready near her duty belt. Harris snatched Josephine's capital ID, badge C43210, from her extended palm and squinted at the printed address. "You don't live here," he said flatly. "Just off shift at the Capitol," she replied evenly. "I tend the grounds there." Nguyen's eyes flicked to the tote. "May we look inside?" Harris barked. His tone was sharp, an accusation masquerading as routine. Josephine's spine straightened. "Officer Harris, unless you have probable cause, I respectfully decline." Her words landed like stones on still water. Harris's jaw clenched. "Protocol," he growled. He took a menacing step forward. "We had a call, someone suspicious prowling windows." He jerked his head toward the darkened houses behind her. "ID and bag. Now." Josephine's breath fogged in the cold. She reached for her tote's flap, but instead placed both hands on its strap. "Officers, I've provided ID, explained my destination, and declined an unlawful search. If you wish to verify further, please call Capitol Security." She let the gold-embossed seal of her badge catch the flashlight beam. Nguyen glanced between Josephine and her partner. "Carl, maybe we should verify," she whispered. Harris snapped, "Stand down, Sophia." He turned back to Josephine. "Last warning, cooperate or you'll come with us." Josephine's fists clenched beneath her coat. Her long history of quiet service had never prepared her for suspicion in her own neighborhood. Yet she did not flinch. She met Harris's glare with unwavering calm. "I'm cooperating, in full view of my neighbors and your body cams. Now, please step aside." A tense silence fell, broken only by the distant bark of a fox. Then, the hush was shattered by the deep, purposeful growl of an approaching engine, tires slushing in the thin snow. Headlights rounded the corner and swept the lawn in a single, bright arc, promising an unexpected ally and changing the night's course forever. The black SUV slid to a stop just beyond the sheriff's cruiser, its engine's silent hum contrasting sharply with the deputy's rude burst of siren earlier. Its tinted windows and federal plates announced authority before the rear door even swung open. Josephine Carter watched, wary but hopeful, as a tall figure stepped out, tall and composed in a crisp navy uniform glinting with brass pins. Behind him followed two aides, one clutching a briefcase, the other scanning the scene on a tablet. Josephine recognized him instantly, her son, Commander Gabriel Carter of the State Bureau of Homeland Security. She allowed herself a small, grateful smile. Deputy Harris narrowed his eyes at the newcomer. He raised his flashlight again, but Gabriel did not flinch. Instead, he planted his polished leather boots firmly in the slush and announced, "Deputy Harris, please lower your weapon." Harris hesitated, flashlight beam wobbling. Josephine stepped back to give Gabriel room. Her heart pounded, not from fear this time, but from relief. Gabriel's presence carried weight that went beyond any badge he wore, it commanded respect simply by his quiet assurance. Deputy Nguyen, still at the cruiser's door, seized her moment, "Unit 7 to dispatch, I need clearance on Carter, badge G0924. Her voice trembled with deference. Inside the SUV, a short exchange crackled, "Confirmed. Carter, State Homeland Security, authorization level Delta." Diaz turned to Harris, eyes wide. "He's clear, sir." Harris flicked his gaze from Gabriel to Josephine, to her badge still held at chest level. His bravado snapped like a twig underfoot. He lowered the flashlight, just his tool this time, and backed away. Gabriel strode forward, silent until he was arm's length from Josephine. With a nod, he acknowledged her. Then he addressed the officers, voice cool and resonant, "My mother was en route to a known address, 46, Elmwood Drive, to deliver soup to Ms. Monroe, recovering from surgery. You had no cause to detain her." Harris stammered, glancing at his partner, who returned a look of apology. Nguyen stepped cautiously closer. "Commander, I'm sorry," she said, her tone earnest. "I saw the report and didn't question it enough." Gabriel allowed a fraction of a nod. "Thank you, Deputy Nguyen. Accountability is how we earn trust." Josephine carefully folded her hands around her tote strap. "Officers," she said softly, "thank you for verifying." She glanced at Harris. "I trust you'll see to a respectful apology at the station." Harris swallowed hard, flushing. He shifted his cap in a nervous salute. "Yes, ma'am." Nguyen extinguished her radio, and the deputies retreated to their cruiser, leaving the trio framed by the cheery porch light of 46 Elmwood. As the vehicle's taillights vanished around the bend, Gabriel placed a gentle hand on his mother's shoulder. "Are you all right, Mama?" he asked. Josephine drew a steadying breath. "I am now," she replied. The wind stirred the maple leaves overhead, as if nature itself sighed in relief. Together, mother and son turned toward Lucy Monroe's warm welcome, and toward the long work of restoring trust on their beloved street. By dawn, Riverside County Sheriff's Department brass were reviewing every frame of the deputy's body cam footage. In the precinct's fluorescent-lit conference room, Captain Helen Brooks replayed the video alongside dispatch logs. She shook her head at Harris's brusque handling of Josephine Carter. "This is profiling, not policing," she muttered to Sergeant Emily Trent, who sat beside her. Within hours, Deputy Benjamin Harris was served with an administrative leave notice. He surrendered his badge and firearm under protest. His partner, Deputy Sophia Nguyen, submitted a detailed report of the stop, acknowledging Nicole's mistaken assumptions and her own failure to intervene sooner. That afternoon, Chief Brooks convened a press briefing in the station's lobby. Dozens of cameras lined the podium as she began. "The Riverside County Sheriff's Department regrets the improper detention of Ms. Josephine Carter. Effective immediately, Deputy Harris is on leave pending a full internal affairs investigation. We are committed to transparency and will implement enhanced bias awareness training department-wide." Reporters shouted, "Follow UPS." Brooks responded with measured firmness, "Further inquiries should be directed to our internal affairs unit. We ask for the public's patience as we ensure due process." The local news ran the clip at 6 o'clock, and social media quickly lit up with #StandWithJosephine and #RiversideAccountability. Community leaders mobilized. At the Riverside Civic Center, Council member Andrea Lowe organized an emergency forum. "Our city deserves law enforcement that respects every resident," she declared, eyes bright with conviction. "Ms. Carter's courage reminds us to hold our protectors to the highest standard." That evening, Josephine Carter accepted an invitation to address the forum alongside Commander Gabriel Carter and Deputy Nguyen. The auditorium overflowed, faith leaders, activists, families, and curious neighbors filled every seat. When Josephine stepped to the mic, her familiar calm settled the crowd. "My detention was never about safety," she said, voice unwavering. "It was about assumptions. I ask only this, that we build a culture of verification and respect, where credentials matter as much as skin color, and where every call of suspicion receives thoughtful follow-up, not rushed judgment." Her words drew sustained applause. Deputy Nguyen took the podium next. "I witnessed that night how fear can overshadow duty," she admitted. "I pledge to my community, and to Ms. Carter, to speak up whenever I see injustice." Her honesty earned cheers and a few tears among the audience. By week's end, petitions calling for a permanent civilian police oversight committee had gathered hundreds of signatures. Flyers announced monthly, "Coffee with a Cop" events in neighborhood cafes. Even the bus driver who'd watched the tense confrontation from a distance stepped forward to thank Josephine personally. Back at 42, Elmwood Drive that Friday, Josephine delivered the last of her soup to Lucy Monroe. As she stepped away, Lucy pressed a hand to her heart. "Thank you for standing tall," she whispered. Josephine's eyes softened. "Thank you for letting me, thank you for believing me." Under the veranda's dormer lights, Josephine Carter closed her eyes and inhaled the night air. The street was quieter now, but the momentum of change hummed through every leaf and every rooftop. In Riverside, accountability had found its voice, and Josephine's act of steady resistance had lit the spark. The Monday after the forum, Riverside's morning radio show, Riverside 99.3, opened with host Marisol Vega's headline, "Groundskeeper vs. Deputy, a Community Transformed." She introduced civil rights attorney Diane Kent, who praised the swift departmental response and called Riverside a model for balanced policing. Meanwhile, at the Civic Center, the first official meeting of the Riverside Oversight Committee convened. Council member Andrea Lowe presided, flanked by Commander Gabriel Carter, Deputy Nguyen, faith leaders, and everyday residents. Nameplates glinted under the bright lights: Helen Brooks, Diane Kent, Josephine Carter, the sole community representative. Josephine rose to speak. "Last week, I asked for a simple thing, respect," she began. "Tonight, I ask for structures to sustain that respect. Let us enact mandatory de-escalation training, enforce bodycam usage, and create clear pathways for civilian input. Her calm authority carried through the hushed room. Deputy Nguyen followed. I volunteered to co-lead our new peer accountability team, she announced. Together, officers will review each other's stops and share feedback in a safe environment. Heads nodded, a few officers murmured their support. Next, Diane Kent presented draft language for city ordinance. Quarterly public reviews of internal affairs data, transparency dashboards on the city website, and a civilian liaison stationed at precinct headquarters. This isn't a panacea, she cautioned, but it's a start toward rebuilding mutual trust. By the meeting's end, the committee voted unanimously to recommend the ordinance to City Council. Flyers went up around town, attend the council vote, Tuesday at 6 p.m., Riverside Hall. That evening, Josephine resumed her capital duties with renewed purpose. Custodial staffers greeted her with quiet cheers, the building's maintenance team even tacked a small sign by her supply closet, Josephine's Hall of Honor, as a token of appreciation. On Tuesday, City Council chambers overflowed. Report after report praised the proposed ordinance. Residents spoke from the podium, parents, retirees, students, even a local pastor who invoked Josephine's rocking chair vigil as the embodiment of peaceful protest. When Councilmember Lowe introduced the measure, a wave of applause swept the chamber. Council voted 7-0 in favor, and Mayor Thomas Rivers signed the ordinance on the spot. He clasped Josephine's hand and declared, "Tonight, we prove that dignity can reshape policy." Back at 42, Elmwood Drive, Josephine sat once more in her rocking chair, this time beneath a new street sign, Carter Corner. The community had renamed the intersection in her honor. A small plaque glowed beneath the lamp, in gratitude to Josephine Carter, who sat still so Riverside could stand together. As cicadas whispered among the live oaks and the moon rose above her veranda, Josephine sipped chamomile tea from her chipped mug. Her home was the same, yet everything had changed. In Riverside, accountability was no longer just a promise. It was a living, breathing reality, carried on the steady rhythm of a rocking chair. Half a year later, Riverside's reforms were fully in place, and the data spoke volumes. Bodycam compliance climbed above 95%. The public dashboard logged each civilian complaint, investigation status, and outcome in real time. The new civic liaison hotline averaged 100 calls weekly, ranging from parking lot litter to substantive complaints about excessive force. In the Capitol's basement break room, Josephine Carter shared herbal tea with Deputy Sophia Nguyen. The young officer glowed with purpose. Tonight we held our first peer review workshop, Nguyen reported, eyes bright. 15 officers volunteered, unprecedented turnout. They discussed bias awareness techniques and civilian police communication. Josephine smiled. Trust grows in conversation, she said, stirring her mug gently. Meanwhile, at Riverside High School, debate coach Marisol Turner invited Josephine to address the championship team. Standing before 40 eager students, Josephine recounted her curbside stand. She concluded, "Whether you wear a badge or carry books, remember. Dignity precedes authority. Speak up when protocol betrays respect." Students leapt to their feet, applause breaking like a wave. Across town, at the renovated Riverside Community Engagement Suite, Josephine and Commander Gabriel Carter toured the new Josephine Carter Auditorium, once a dusty annex, now a hub for dialogue and training. They paused at a brass plaque over the doorway, "For unwavering service and fearless grace." Gabriel tapped the plaque fondly. "You deserve this," he said quietly. That afternoon, U.S. Senator Laura Reed visited on a fact-finding mission for her upcoming Public Safety Accountability Act. Reed sat in on a mediator-led conflict resolution simulation, then turned to Josephine. "Your city's work is our blueprint," she said, notes in hand. "I'm carrying these lessons to Washington." Josephine nodded, humbled but resolute. In the state legislature's hearing room, Reed introduced her bill, quoting Josephine. Authority without accountability is no authority at all. The centerpiece: mandatory statewide bodycam enforcement, civilian review boards in every county, and transparent complaint tracking. Co-sponsors rose in support, citing Riverside as proof of concept. Back in Riverside, the Neighborhood Safety Coalition, an alliance of Blockwatch leaders, hosted its first spring garden gala in the Carter Community Room. Over lemonade and pound cake, neighbors praised improvements, respectful traffic stops, prompt responses to minor calls, and real invitations to sit at the table. One elderly man toasted Josephine, "You taught us to hold the line with grace." At the police academy, recruits in navy shirts read "Dignity precedes authority" across their backs. Instructor Captain Miles Bennett presented Josephine's story as a case study in a de-escalation module. She wasn't a protester or politician, he told them, she was a citizen insisting on respect. That makes her lesson unforgettable. 6 months on, Riverside's complaint volume had dropped by 40% and public trust survey scores climbed 30 points. Yet Josephine remained grounded. Weekends still meant soup runs to Lucy Monroe, mopping corridors at the Capitol, and quiet evenings on her veranda. Every sweep of her broom and every thermos of soup testified that steadfast presence, one rocking chair vigil at a time, could indeed reshape an entire community. Nearly a year after that icy night, Josephine Carter returned to 46 Elmwood Drive carrying a small pot of stone-ground grits for Lucy Monroe's brunch. Spring had burst into bloom, pink dogwoods bowed over manicured hedges, and tulips nodded in front yards. As she crossed the street, neighbors paused to wave, children on bicycles slowed to shout, "Good morning, Miss Carter." On Lucy's freshly painted porch, where peeling shutters once whispered neglect, she now spotted a new sign: "All are welcome." Josephine's chest tightened with quiet pride. Lucy, clad in a pale apron, opened the door in her brace. They exchanged a warm embrace before carrying grits inside. Later, Josephine strolled down the block to the Carter Engagement Suite backyard, where Deputy Nguyen knelt beside bright pansies planted in memory of their first forum. "I planted these after your speech," Nguyen said softly. Josephine wiped soil from her gloves. "They're beautiful, Sophia." Their shared laughter wove through the garden like sunlight. That afternoon, Riverside High's Student Council invited Josephine to judge a mock debate on police reform. In the auditorium, teens argued diverse viewpoints: body cams, community liaisons, bias training. When they stumbled for facts, Josephine guided them gently: respect demands listening first, solutions follow. Afterwards, a shy sophomore pressed a notebook into Josephine's hand: dignity precedes authority. The girl's bright eyes said more than words. "Thank you," Josephine whispered. "And never forget, your voice matters." As dusk fell, Josephine made her way back to the Capitol entrance, where security lights gleamed on marble steps. She paused to touch her badge, C43210, hanging on her lanyard. In that silent corridor, she realized how far Riverside had come. Inside the hushed halls, she retrieved her mop cart and set to work. Each sweep of the floor now felt like a quiet echo of bigger changes. Corridors that once echoed with indifference now rang with nods of respect from colleagues. Her steady presence, both in these halls and on her porch, had become the community's heartbeat, reminding everyone that true safety blossoms from shared dignity. As summer warmed Riverside, Josephine Carter was asked to speak at a regional Safe Street Summit in Augusta. Senator Laura Reed introduced her before an auditorium of city managers, police chiefs, and civic advocates. Josephine's quiet bearing silenced the room. "If we protect people first, verify credentials, listen openly, our streets will be safer," she said. Applause rippled across conference tables. Out of that summit grew the Tri-County Exchange Program. Officers from Augusta and Macon traveled to Riverside to shadow patrols. Riverside's recruits joined workshops on bias awareness. Deputy Nguyen led a morning session in Macon, guiding trainees through the human rights scenarios inspired by Josephine's curbside stand. Back home, the Riverside Engagement Suite unveiled its new digital archive, an interactive touchscreen showcasing anonymized body cam clips highlighting respectful interventions and de-escalation successes. Residents could submit feedback in real time. Nearly 2,000 testimonials, praise, suggestions, and stories of small kindnesses filled the archive, turning data into living history. One afternoon, Josephine and Commander Gabriel Carter toured the suite. Gabriel tapped a sentiment map showing trust levels by neighborhood. Blocks once shaded red near Elmwood Drive now glowed green after community picnics and joint patrol rides. Josephine squeezed his hand gently. "Every face matters," she said. In uniform, new recruits donned t-shirts bearing her motto, "Dignity precedes authority," which trended on local social media. Tattoo artists even offered simple script designs, though most wore theirs on chests beneath badges. That August, Governor Karen Whitfield signed the Georgia Public Safety Accountability Act, mandating statewide civilian oversight boards and bodycam compliance tied to grant funding. During the ceremonial signing at the Capitol, Senator Reed read excerpts from Josephine's forum speech. As cameras clicked, Josephine held her teacup steady, a survivor's calm in the storm of revolution. Back in Riverside, Josephine resumed her porch vigil under firefly-studded skies. The painted rocking chair, once a symbol of quiet defiance, now represented collective resolve. Neighbors' greetings came more often, punctuated by heartfelt thanks. And somewhere in the humidity, the cicadas seemed to hum a softer, more hopeful tune. When autumn's cool winds swept through Riverside, the city prepared for Community Safety Week. Main Street lampposts bore banners featuring Josephine Carter's silhouette alongside Deputy Nguyen and Councilmember Andrea Lowe. Panels, potlucks, and youth forums filled the calendar. On Monday, Josephine opened the week at the public library, moderating a dialogue between Commander Carter and Riverside High seniors. A student asked, "How do we keep this progress alive?" Josephine replied, "By staying engaged, holding leaders accountable and each other responsible. Trust isn't permanent, it's earned daily." That evening, the engagement suite hosted a candlelight vigil for those harmed by unchecked policing. Families shared painful memories. Josephine lit a candle for each name read aloud, each flame a pledge to do better. Midweek, community liaison officers led free walking tours of Riverside's downtown safety upgrades, pedestrian refuges, callbox kiosks, and neighborhood watch stations. Deputy Nguyen chatted freely with families, answering questions and gathering feedback, an exercise in transparency that would have been unthinkable a year ago. On Thursday, the student film premiere, From Porch to Promise, showed local teens' documentary of Josephine's story. As credits rolled, the packed auditorium leapt to its feet. Josephine sat in the front row, Marcus Monroe, Lucy's recovered husband, smiling proudly beside her. Friday brought a closed-door legislative strategy session in Atlanta. Josephine joined Senator Reed, civic leaders, and national advocates to refine model bills for federal grants supporting local oversight and bias awareness training. Reed concluded, "Riverside's example proves that one person's quiet stand can light a movement." Saturday's finale was a picnic at Elmwood Park. Under white tents, neighbors high-fived Deputy Nguyen, laughed with recruits, and toasted Josephine's health with sparkling cider. Marcus raised his cup, to Riverside, for showing that respect, like soup, warms the soul. Josephine clinked her cup, eyes glistening in autumn's golden glow. As dusk settled, she returned to her veranda, leaves swirling around her rocking chair. Still the same clapboard house, same chipped mug at her elbow, but now the porch stood for something far greater, the living promise that dignity, affirmed one resolute person at a time, can reshape an entire town.